Sorry, you're joining and you could see you don't see me. There we go. So unfortunately, I have some anyway, here we go. So today I will try to get the picture so I'm not so but you really see me today. So with technology in the pandemic, you really need to kind of sometimes take a breath. So that's what I'm doing right now. And I just had a power blip. I live in rural Montana, but we're going to go ahead today with arts and crafts for wellness. And I was talking with one of my friends earlier in the week uh, about what I could share on here, because not that I'm crafty, but I'm crafty. So, but first I'd like to start again. So, Oki, Nandanako Asteneki. I'm Lori NewBreast, and I'm from the Blackfeet Nation in Montana. And so when I was thinking about what I would share today, basically, I know other folks, like, their living rooms might look like, architectural digest, but my living room is my creating room. So I have my quilting set up, my quilting table, which never goes down. People have learned when they come over to the house that they eat around my creative area. And I also keep in this area a lot of the sort of like the projects that I'm working on, or if I need things during the pandemic, I go into the supplies I've accumulated, like decades. And some of those supplies, they age just like people. So that's always somebody who's creative or an artist. Like, you can always buy the next brush, or you're out shopping for zucchini and suddenly your basket is filled with acrylic paint. It's just one of those I think magical things about letting and acknowledging the power of creativity. But I also, as we're gathering in the beginning of this hour, I wanted to really give some practical cultural arts skills that you need. If you are an indigenous person, and I got a message from Facebook, but I can't read it because I don't got my other magic eyes on. That was in the technology flib blob that just happened. So I hope everybody can hear me. If someone gives me a thumbs up, that would be great. Okay, I don't know. That little ding dong thing just keeps going. So what I'd like to do is to show a skill. You must master this. And so I was looking around my house, and I have thousands, not thousands. I have about 100 different types of needles laying around my house. And then using this medium, I said to myself, well, how am I going to show people what to do? Because there is so much I could, that I'd like to share. And on this medium, I can share with a whole bunch of people, and you don't all have to find my house, and, come in and start looking at all the projects that I'm working on. But I wanted to start off with a really practical skill. So because I don't have a giant camera ready needle, I used my ingenuity and I made a needle. So this is a needle. Just go with it. Just feel it. This is a needle. This is a representation, an artistic representation of a needle, like a sewing needle. And So this would be a thread. Let's say I was going to sew an outfit, or I was going to hand quilt, or maybe I was going to get a special needle like a Glover's needle to sew my first pair of moccasins ever, right? So this is your thread. So this is how you thread a needle, and then I'm going to tie a knot at the end. I'm going to show you a couple different ways, okay? So literally you take this, see that? It's going to go in like this. And it comes out the other side, and don't pull it all the way through because whoops, what happened? So don't hold your breath either. It's easier to thread a needle if you don't hold your breath. Okay, that was an unintended joke. So put it in there. Gently pull until you estimate with your eyes. That's about 50-50, right? So here's the end. Now there's a couple ways to tie the end, and you can do it with one hand. So I'm going to show you my hand. So see, flip around, get a circle, tuck this in. And this is usually bigger than the thread, and I do it quick, so I don't usually stop. It's like a stutter step, right? So you see there's, right? But then there's another way. Let's say you're down to sewing you're almost at the heel of your moccasin all the way around, and you need to be economical with that thread and make it sew longer than you have. So you could do it with one, right? Same thing. See that circle? With one hand, I tuck in the end. Now, this is actually for crocheting, but goes to that circle, and when you pull it, voila, you got a knot. But there's also another way to sew, to tie a knot. This is if my hand, I was thinking I could use a piece of fabric, but that won't work on this medium. So let's say this is my hand as a piece of fabric, and I'm sewing. See, in and out the thread. See how the thread is going? And then I run out and I need to tie a knot. But I only have that much left. If you put your needle in and you take this thread and you go over one side, whoops, and then this would have to be cut in half. Sorry about that. You go over one side and then you go back around. So see how the thread is in around the needle on the outside? And then you pull the needle through the fabric, and a knot, if this is the back of the fabric, is formed on that back. But I did want to show, as they say, when you're showing things, you must go on no matter what. But this is a needle. So maybe on another power hour also, I will devote much more to working with the needle in leather and fabric. But there are tons and tons of projects that you can do really to help your wellness. Because you can even like formalize. Maybe some of you are out there thinking, well, how can I get into art therapy? How can I get into really helping people on a different way, on specific, overcoming specific challenges in their life? But really, indigenous people, everything was artistic. Everything had a purpose behind it. Our clothing, or the lodges, or the housing that we lived in traditionally, even how we decorated ourselves. There was always an artistic or an aesthetic that was reflective of who we are culturally. So I've spent a lot of time in my life mastering traditional skills. And even one time I wanted to, because we are really innovative, I think of how we've lived in history. So one time I was even helping people sew a teepee and patch a canvas teepee and patch a wall tent. And the teepee had its own journey through the history of the people, and it had a gunshot in it. So it was in the middle, and you had to have, you had to really use your hands and the strength of your hands. So I even patched a gunshot in a teepee because I knew how to sew. And sometimes we would be putting up different lodges or something, and the edge of the lodge had seen a lot of wear, and you're out there and you have to sew. You have to learn to sew. So I would say maybe it's not the first thing you think of, but warriors know how to sew. And as people go on and really doing on their journey, during the pandemic, afterwards, whatever you're doing, that is one of the critical skills. And also tying knots. And that could be a whole power hour on why the tying of instruments, the tying of cultural items, that it was specific. So those things are attainable to anybody right now. You don't have to go out and go shopping. You don't have to mail order or order online. You can simply find some type of string. And if you don't have one, you might look through your t-shirts and cut some strings. Or if you do have a needle and thread, you practice if that's a skill that you want to develop, because it's critical to everything in the culture, whatever culture you come from, because our people we were self-sufficient, where we made everything until great, and we also traded. So, maybe your ancestors were somebody who went to some of the great trading centers and traded with other tribes of goods they made. So I'm gonna move my camera a little bit. I realize I'm kind of sideways, but hey, it's that type of day. So when I was first doing this and broadcasting and working from my home and sharing with people just, episodes in my life, I guess, during the pandemic, I also was working on my home studio, and I needed some stuff that would be in the background. So I'm just going to slightly move this way, or maybe it might be this way. We'll just do a little, nobody get vertigo or anything like that. So you see those 4 small paintings. They represent an exercise that I was doing with myself, that to really say, when I'm opening up my home to people I don't know through this medium, and I want to share, I want to give them a signal about who I am. So I decided to paint my own small portrait pieces, and there'll be a display on a wall. So if you have paint you haven't used in quite a while, feel that is also something, supplies. I'm of the mind you can never have too many supplies. But you might hear my res dogs. One of them is snoring right here. She wasn't feeling too good earlier, so she's inside having a cool day, and the other 2 are monitoring outside. But when I was planning today, I really wanted to be mindful of what today is. That for our African American, our Black American relatives, depending on which English phrase they prefer, today marks Juneteenth, where Indians are well aware of this. Like, a big change will be made somewhere, and then we get the notice. Or maybe it's kind of like the COVID-19 CARES Act funds to Indian country, the down to Indian country freely. So when slavery, which means owning another human being, was ended in America, that news was not, or those laws were not recognized uniformly all across the country. And so today marks a day when they became known in the kind of like the last holdout. And so it's really for everybody that's sharing this geography, it is really another day when we all step forward towards freedom. Where when somebody is enslaved, even if it's not you, it's not your cousins, it's not, our freedom is held back. We're not free. And so today is a special day where you can mark people use that we've all agreed to use, that we all moved forward. And it was because people ended. Now we can still, people can debate. There's a lot of debates, and all those the people on the, they're going to be given, but that's fine. And so I want to, I am mindful of what this means to a lot of communities in the U.S. So one particular thing I was like, I know some Indians are librarians, or indigenous people are librarians. You only can do this with books you purchase and own, or you are given and you own them. Okay? So we're going to talk today, and what I wanted to share today was a technique called, it's collage, but really it's, if you want to say, it's graphic storytelling. It's visual storytelling using images that when you see them in your eye, you make a connection to. And so I wanted to show one specific book that I harvested those images out of. I bought this, I own this book, this is my property. And the type of collage I'm going to show you is, you are not making collage for sale. So like the copyright, the legal stuff about our ancestors' images being owned by other people, that doesn't apply, because these collages are, if you want to say, are like a graphic journal just for yourself. It's for your own journey and for you to share with people. But nobody can, you own these cards. You own these these small collages. And they're for you because they're your story. So, but in this book, so, maybe you've seen it. In this book was my great-great-grandmother's photo. Edward Curtis took her picture. And, like all Indians living right now, your homework's never done, and especially on your family. And so when I started asking members of my family about my grandmother and different stories, those stories changed and were enriched as I grew older, because I was ready to hear different versions of her life, different details and different versions of, or more, I would say more of, I was getting the filling in of her life. And I'm just going to try something with my camera so that I can. And since technology had nothing to do with combing my hair, I did comb my hair today. Oh, they're better. Yay! So this is my grandmother, Two Bears Woman. And this is from the Edward Curtis book. And the small collages that I've been, that I've facilitated workshops, that I've worked with groups with, I also do these collages for myself, for my own graphic journey, or to really, it's another way of journaling, but it's also another way to help to let my creative senses help me along my journey in life. So I've done a number of these collages, and they're usually on this size paper, and you can really, at home, you can use anything. I was thinking about this last night, that I know a lot of homes that have paper plates. I've seen your Instagram paper plates. So you could even do a collage on a plate. It could be round, be this shape. Have a sturdy, kind of make it sturdy. And the way this collage works is, so I showed you a book that I cut up. I cut pictures out. I lay them in a pile. And I wanted to show you some of the piles of pictures, the type of pictures that I just go through magazines. Well, not now, but secondhand stores, or, you know, if you look around your house, you have some magazines. In this one, it's not an heirloom, but in this older dresser that family members had used, I found some magazines from 1971 in the bottom. So, but I'm just going to show you some images. This is actually a postcard. This was from a textile, oh no, wait, this is from an exhibit in New Zealand. From a gift shop in Australia. And I believe this is part of a textile show in San Francisco. So like trade show, well, not now, but before, I would go around and if I went to like a trade show or even like a county fair and people were giving out free stuff, the magic word, with images on them, I would pick those up, particularly if they're on good paper. Another postcard, but I want to show you some magazine clips. So this was actually from a pretty a low-cost production booklet on horses. So I collect all types of images, and then I wanted to show you the ones that when I was prepared. Oh, sorry about that. Woo, that was almost like a casualty of the power hour. I'm joking. But today, when I was preparing, there was, I got to straighten this out. This is what quilting does to people. You want to make things even. So I'm going to, okay. All right. So today, when I was getting the images, excuse me, I'm going off camera a little bit. I thought I wanted to show you, I just started cutting up images, and in my crafting stuff, I came across a picture of myself. Look, that looks kind of weird. Like we could do a whole thing on this, right? But a picture of myself, I believe it would have to 2005. And I was joking around with this long scarf that somebody had sent me. But I was like, look at, I mean, I could do a whole power hour like this, right? This is like my memory kind of. So I found this accidentally in my images in supply. So I cut it out. It was a larger photograph. And then this is pottery again from a magazine, and I cut that out. not because it was pottery, but because of the light in the colors. And then I came across, I'm just going to say it, you know, when I went to the southern, went to this, and you could go out on this boat, and they sang, the dolphins that would come around you. So this is part of that bay that I swam in. But when I look at this color, this is also the color of the glacier runoff water of the area I live in here in Montana, or on the Blackfeet Reservation in our home territory. This is the same color. But anyway, I took that postcard and I harvested the parts that I liked for my card. And then another book that when the Mayan calendar, when like 2020 and things like that were happening, there was a glut of information put out about the Mayan calendar. So I was fortunate enough to get a very high quality book written by somebody. I don't always read the text because it's not a Mayan person, but I love the images. So this is an image from that book. And today, particularly, we've had rain for the last couple days, and then it was sunny briefly, and now it's clouding up again. But the grass and the landscape it looks like velvet. It's just so beautiful. So this spoke to me today from where I'm at during the pandemic. It's beautiful here. So those images, I would take them, and on this card, or you could use this side, but it's better to use this side, you select how you want to place them. And then you glue them down. And that process of responding to images and to color is done quickly and without too much thought. You don't plan it. So like I usually lay out all the images, excuse me, on the table. So I lay out all the images on the table, and then I select 4 or 5 of them, and I'm thinking of something. Like today I was thinking, okay, here we are, what can I share on this Friday for the arts and crafts? So I picked those images. But I also wanted to share today with what happens to those images once you start working with them. So let's see, I need my other hands free. And I find if I push the camera back and don't push it off the table like I did last time, it works better. Okay. It's a little, work with me. That's artistic. I meant that for it to be slanted. But, so I wanted to say what happens to these as sort of a graphic or visual journey of this time that I'm living. And to share some of the other cards that the reason I started this is I had went to a fundraiser for animal protection in the part of Montana I live in. And so the fundraiser was local artists set up and contribute, and 20% of their proceeds would go to the animal shelter, the Flathead Valley Animal Shelter in Kalispell, Montana. And so I went there and I met another person who did collage, and they had their cards out there. And although it was really crowded, there were probably like 50 vendors. I went back to that table 3 or 4 times. So finally I asked the woman, like, how did you learn how to do this? And we started talking. And the beauty of her cards really, her compositions of her collage really was for me, like I felt like a heart connection to it. So I pursued it. And it's taken me on really an amazing journey. I went to Santa Cruz, California, to the founder of this technique, and I had a workshop experience with other collage people doing collage, and it just spoke to them. So one of the techniques that they, in this method that they helped you with, was to organize your images not in a sequential way, like from 1 to 10, you know, not in a didactic way, but really to say, if you wanted to pick, if you lay out all your cards, sort of like what are the cards that would be like the holding stones of like the bottom of the teepees in the before time, when they would use stones to keep the teepee down. And so these are the 3 cards. And so these are all compositions of images that other people provided. Some of them I had nothing to do with selecting these images. I merely was a recipient of getting able to pick from their supply. So if I had to put these in some type of order, I've been thinking about this. This is the first image. So I'm going to hold it. I'm trying to get that shine off with the curtains open. So for me, the story of this card is that when I'm among stones, I always feel safe. And to know that the mountains that I live by, that they're like what holds, you know, the earthly universe, I guess, together for me. And that's my expression. So this card is really something that always, when I'm reviewing it or I'm looking at it, I always feel really grounded. And it's a reminder of me to me also that this lady right here, that's a lady, she is part of another indigenous culture. But when I seen that image, I seen the green rock that is up and down the river, the banks that are sandy. I seen the shale that exists around here. I seen my home. So I made this one in Santa Cruz, California. But I made it because it's a story of my home. And then on another time, I was thinking about, you know, like it was kind of like a change in my life about where I'm going to go, what I'm going to do, people's expectations of me, you know, all those things that float through your mind off and on. And so I was in a workshop with another lady, and I took one of these images, but I didn't use it in that workshop. And later on, when I was at home doing my, making my collage, I used these images. So I'll just show you this card. And then the thing about this card, it kind of had its own journey in being created. So you can look at it a number of ways. So when I do that, everything changes when you merely turn the card. So as I go on in collage, one of my goals, or one of the things that I'm working on now, is to change this to a circular image, a circular platform. But that's another card. And that one has its story about really the interconnectedness. I was driving home, and one time, not too far from here, and I seen a silverback grizzly cross at the bottom of this hill, and cross from one side of the road up a coulee to the next one, on the other side. And I was talking with my brother about it afterwards, and he said, well, that's part of the like a hereditary migration route for those grizzlies. That's their highway long before there was the first car on Earth. And it's part of the prehistoric game migration trails that exist in North America, regardless of boundaries. So I thought about that about how the knowing of animals to travel and to traverse and to move in their life cycle, how it wasn't nomadic, how they describe us. It was intentional. It was intentional movement to honor like the seasons of the earth, the creation. So I'll show you that card again. But the longer I would work with this card, and after, I matted it and added it to the collage collection, then when I would look at it, I would turn it around, because there was much more inner relationship about like the development when man started molding the earth into other things. That some things are so old from the time before that they've turned to stone. That's what these are. But just all those things that are present in what has been my journey or my understanding. And so I'll show you some other ones, but this is the other anchor card. Who doesn't love a buffalo calf in the Milky Way? And this is how I think of the gifts and the knowledge that come from the stars. It's always that new life, that knowledge, like for my people, is so we can live here. We can live the now. And for me, like today, on Juneteenth, or, sharing this time with you, the stars even shine when it's sunny. So I think that this card always reminds me of our life on earth here is really reflected in the stars. And that those are some of the teachings. But all of these images came from separate places. They came from places that had no association with them. And I merely cut them out and laid them out on a table and gave myself 30 seconds to choose 3 images. Because sometimes in creativity, what you're doing is you're setting aside maybe the word ticker tape that's going across here, or maybe the worry or the happiness. You set apart trying to define the moment, and you let your eyes and your feelings and really sometimes like the heart connection. Because when I first seen this buffalo, this Unesta, the baby buffalo, I instantly felt just good. And that's why I selected that image. But this is really the story of, for me, to be mindful that my connection on earth here is to the stars. So that's one of them. And I have quite a bit, so we don't have the whole time. I gotta give myself a little time check here. But I did want to share some other ones with you. I haven't finished making my pandemic cards, but they'll fit in here. They'll find a home in here, and my life after this time. they'll have a card of their own. And so I want to show, I didn't intend these, but I'll show you some cards before I show you the first card I made. Okay. So a large part of my wellness, or my sometimes people will tell me it's my birthplace, my birth order place, all these kind of things, you know. But what I know is that I have a huge capacity to work, and I this may not seem related, but it is. When I was trying to understand how the Hutterites settled near the Indians here and in southern Alberta, I read about their life, and I was like, when I get to this part, I'll tell you my reaction. But basically for them, work is prayer, both a 4-letter word. Pray and work are 4-letter English words. So for me, that's how it was, like a light bulb went on, because I was trying to find the balance that we're all seeking, or somebody said we're supposed to be seeking it. I don't know. Most days I feel pretty balanced and I'm doing things. So, and people who know me, I would have to take like a workshop on how to chill, like how to lay around and stuff. That is not me. And we're all beautiful and individual, and if that's your level of expertise, that's your groove, go with it. But for me, I was looking at that in my life, so I made these cards. And I don't know if I also have some jokes about that card, but I'm just going to show them to you. And so all of these collages were, to me, like, maybe if you came to my house and we laid out all the cards, you might pick these up and think something else about them. But to me, these were all those things about being a worker, being a person actively, learning skills, actively doing things, teaching myself how to grow blue Hopi corn that I was gifted on the Blackfeet Reservation, one of the windiest places probably on the continent. And I did that. But these images are part of my story, because some of my ability to be busy did come from my childhood. And you see that little guy? So when I seen him, I instantly felt connected to him. And so sometimes images in collage are, your intention, you go there and you're like, I'm going to make an image about the pandemic, about my experience in the pandemic. And you do go, and boom, 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 those images start talking to you, or you are attracted to them. And whatever you're attracted to is correct. But these images I made for that purpose, to help myself journey that part of my life. And then there are, I'll just show you these because this is also part of my story. And that's what collage does, is it helps you take images that are not necessarily, maybe other people wouldn't, when they look at them, it's individual, and it is really another way to be your own witness to your process. So I just checked the time again. So I'm just going to show you these images, just in case. I got to put them in the right way the first time. Okay. And then the last one. So what these images of collage really were, all of these that are interconnected, is there was a time when I participated, like to be an advocate, to get resources for tribal communities. And during that time, I was asked to wear certain, I think of them as like uniforms, because they were the ticket in the door. Even a place that I had formerly worked, they sent me, prior to me going there, that how I was required to dress. So I used all my strategic Pekingese senses, and I wanted to go there to get greater resources for people. So what I wore and what I told was correct in those venues. I went out and got them. Because sometimes in the modern era, I have been asked to not look like myself as the entry to certain places that we must all go in this that indigenous people live in. And for me, about the clothes. So I would say that where I feel now in my life is closer to this. And this is brought up in my memory when I was working on this card. It's so beautiful. So beautiful. That one time I was at a government meeting. I mean, it sounds funny, but it ends good on a good note. So I was at a government meeting and training in Hawaii, and I was there on somebody. I was like a tag-along. I was, now when people go to conferences, or they did in the past, went to conferences, and one Indian would be there for the conference, and their whole family would be in the pool while they're working. Okay, I was an Indian in the pool on this trip. But what I remember is I would go at the beginning of the day, and I remember seeing these Native Hawaiian women come in, and they were so themselves, wearing the clothes they chose, wearing the flowers, the beautiful things from their culture. And when they came into that room, I think some people's neck might have hurt, but everybody in that room turned and looked at them. And I thought, well, this is their home. This is their home. And I remember that moment, it was pivotal. And I thought, oh, well, this conference, too bad I'm not staying, because it's going to be interesting, because they came in and they owned that room by how they looked. But when I was making this card, it made me feel really happy. And I think where we're at today, we see a flourishing where, because every place is Indian country. Doesn't matter what the state name is on the overlay or the intention. Every place is Indian country in this land, this continent. It's indigenous people's lands. So I see the pageantry coming out more and more, and that it is less negotiable. But I want to say, that if I would say the teachings for these cards for me is I created access because that opportunity was presented to me, not because of, that it makes me different. But I heard a saying, might have been even John Isaiah Peppian. That's where, and his earrings. That's a little plug right there from my friend Coco. But he said, an opportunity is not an opportunity unless you take it. And that makes a lot of sense. So when I use collage, I use it for a lot of reasons. And sometimes I just do it like I find an image and it is so, I'll show you this one, because a lot of you know my sister Theta. So in a workshop, I picked these images, and I feel this is this about shows sometimes the when you're the younger sibling, they're getting all dolled up for a thing. But as we're getting ready to close, and in the last couple of minutes, I want to share with you the first card I made. I just want you to look at it. So when I made this card with me and my friend Mary King, who's also a Picani, and we went over, we're the only two people in this workshop over on the other side of the mountains. And the facilitator of that workshop, she had carried this image for about 3 years and nobody selected it. And so when I selected it, she was really kind of like, she wanted to know what my story was about why I selected it. And it just reminded me of when you're coming out of winter and you see the buffalo grass from the year before. And there is a longevity in that, to see grass from the year before appear again before the green grass. There's like, it's like, for me, it's always like a moment of sort of like filled with grace that the new time is coming with the green grass, and that the grass from the year before kept the earth together through the winter, kept us together as a reminder, to remind us of that new time that's coming. So I had really a lot of, I also have a lot of love for this card, because it shows me that no matter what is happening, like I might think it's hard, or it might be difficult, or it might be great, right? Because when you have success too, sometimes there's moments when you have to figure out what are you going to do to pay it forward to the people in your life, to the next generation. But it's a reminder to me that we are held, just like the buffalo card. Our place on earth here is held by the stars, and the earth gives us the medicine that we need, and it holds us through times like a hard winter, and it holds us till that next time when the green grass comes up, which is like today where I'm living. But so arts and crafts can be, creative expression could be this, right? I might have to frame this needle as my official PowerPoint wellness needle. But I just want to give thanks to you all today to joining, and to really, that whatever you have at your fingertips, be creative. The way you dress, whatever, own your space. And that is really an act of wellness. But be creative. We came from creative people, and all our world was beautiful, and it's beautiful again. The Indian t-shirt, that's what I'm going to end on. That is the new victory shirt. So there's so much beauty out there, and I wish all of you a good day, and thanks for bearing with my technology blips. So have a good day, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.